Gilg Jew, Gilg J as Gilg Larham.
Showed you Claare na Gael as she my heart and say she was shaltacha. This is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Have you ever had tell of old Bobby Bob?
And it's my pleasure to present this bilingual programme in the English language as the Gill, yes, and in the Manx Gaelic as well. Chinyan Amera, the mother tongue of Elin Vanning, the Isle of Man. As Bannacht and Juris. Now, Dorothy Wordsworth has gone down to visit the Duke of Atholl's gardens at the Castle Mona. The Duke of Atholl hadn't visited the island since 1826, 2 years before Dorothy Wordsworth's visit, and in fact he never did return to it, and on his death in 1830 the Castle Mona was subsequently sold and became a hotel. Sytai Benrich eget and fairly John Seward angol la Shilia Erin Sorensach ego Renfield. Te prawel Renfield jorish Lord Machion and Meenan na creaturen Renfield gee, as Udson chit back de hage magirtemush. To Renfield heen chit the way corrie. We start with the MOLLAG band as Greg Jochen sings about his Landlady. Tashu geishach radio vanning, stashu na nashun, viskull scaliamach vaidulish, Alin vanning.
And I rise up with breeze. I said, love me, love my morgadil, though perfume is a little raw. Cheered, I would go with you and skip down to your door. My landlady, my landlady. I dream about a golden heart and a fair tongue in my pretty face. I wake up as a grumpy old farmer. Tomorrow we will look for it, those two, me and you. My landlady, my landlady.
The MOLLAG band and the song Landlady. More from the MOLLAGs later. I thought, writes Dorothy Wordsworth, of Italian villas and Italian bays, looking down on a long green lawn adorned with flower beds, such as Eve's, that's to say the Garden of Eden, of course. At one end, a perfect level with gravel walks at the sides, woods rising up from it, up the steeps, and the dashing sea, boats and ships, and ladies struggling with the wind, veils and gay shawls and waving flounces. The gardens beautifully managed, wild, yet neat enough for plentiful produce. Shrubbery, forest trees, vegetables, flowers, and hothouses, all connected, yet divided by the form of the ground. Nature and art hand in hand. All shrubs and Spanish chestnuts in great luxuriance. 8 strawberries in the shade. Lord Fitzalan's children keeping their mother's birthday in the strawberry beds. Not quite sure what that actually means, but there we are. I presume that's the bees anyway, but I'm not sure. Lord Fitzalan's children keeping their mother's birthday in the strawberry beds. Driven home by heavy shower, she says. Call at post office to add to letter. Loveliest of evenings. Isle perfectly clear. But no Cumberland. The sea alive with all colours. The eastern sky as bright as the west after sunset. Fe Jean Hook a Gael the raw mi smonion the jig tame dunvarach elier mar shoh ren mi sheja feathernem. Ach, so chalid ren mi. Henke de ve cún. As dúirte de lestialach. Laigi dawe me herli grauw smacht ormpien. Genel siw feim cúner bi. De chwish im nee ons maagne de wel benem de ve grangenach. De rauwach visja wer a dolie te Rome, as de wel mi corish. Versiw goil chimajim, as sorrel mi, as lai dawe. Tammy gwiort gin cormwm jagged kiaull. Tammy giri smunion, as chanodum smunion de ser tretan corpem dunstjach. Tammy shiger de be tiggelis jou. Scronnel ve de rauw smachtdegge ursen heen, maar so tre henk na tenjeli stjach on, dinch mi down de rauw oors on him nee, maar so hayet maag rish. Ich Renfield oruch huis wat gol. Treven Doris dunch lore, was tausmoer de wushlid as de weert. Now, a Cornish song that we've heard before, but this is a version of it by Benjamin JAGO LARHAM. Richard Gendel's De Sul Vyttin. Cornish tenor Benjamin JAGO LARHAM, singing and accompanying himself on the piano. About Sunday morning, the song was De Sol Vyttin. Ma early siwr, ta siwr fei fich hengelrum. Cred de vel mi fear i'r chanl bwystiw. Smunny me de bech en rid shed Gael de smunnion de down on stay de dunje shoh. Ta cus de vin fointen jean de yenu sus ne ta fair bach de Americanach cor skiel de bech geble dek pech en jaksen odreles cheayrt, de chores en odreles cheayrt. Shochad, gejinne chit, giw. Gameleshel. Te Coil al Roshanai de bech ersen jen anam vegridenach. Genel atchemega je lal bios a trere hit. Te jinu beg jen a kainten cinchla de bios ol you kujach, ger de vel atchemega de jen an minenok tegen me giertemush. Rare soonach toljen a ridden show kaurach mach an unred, de vel barentega je sorchanjach kostnagus bios surge enjach. Ta atchemega jen airtis, an era je anam. Ma saw she blios dunye te shira. Walked on pier with Mrs. P. This is Mrs. Putnam, a near constant companion now. Met William. This is Willie Wordsworth, youngest son of poet William. Also, he was also staying with Joanna and Henry Hutchinson on the South Quay. Met William and bought gauze and riband. Trees and hills, houses and bay, most beautiful. July the 6th, Sunday, clear morning at the old church with H and W. J in bed. Walk on pier and after dinner to Kirk Braddon. Major Tomlin's Roman Catholic chapel, garden and plantations, but mean building. Well, again, Dorothy Wordsworth gets her name wrong. Tobin is Tubman. On the old Castletown road opposite the nunnery was a former quarry with cottages now called Park View. When the Manx fencibles had served in Ireland, Major Tubman got lodgings from a Father MacFarlane, who came to the island in 1804, and Major Tubman gave Father MacFarlane the former quarry to build St. Bridget's Roman Catholic chapel there in 1814. And there we heard the hammered dulcimer of John Ray, and he's a player from the coast of County Antrim, and he was playing a dulcimer made by an elder brother, Alex. It was originally made by Alex for another brother of John Ray, Willie Ray, and Willie Ray taught John to play the hammered dulcimer and gave him that particular instrument. So there we heard John Ray and the hammered dulcimer. Stasiwn yn asiwn to Radio Fanning, as to siw geisiach rys Claare na Gael, mer yn pin o Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Did the other hear tell of old Bobby Bob?
Ta ced yw golgus yn y dega Radio Fanning as rai a cramman agart, da eisiach rys y Claare Shoh rys siacht yn lwg jigol ar sgeiliena yn cheayrt, gwrys imad yw'r yn eliad y Claare yn Radio Fanning. Ta podcast gola John J. Claare na Gael nies fys ryged nasty trwy dyn y dega Radio Fanning, na trwy dyn rai chiar y podcast show, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Audible, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, na Alexa. Country, even woody, writes Dorothy Wordsworth. Unusual for the island at that period, of course. It was notably not woody at all. Pity, she says, they make earth fences. Now, these were Manx sod hedges, and the dimensions were in fact set by legislation. So pity they make earth fences, yet, she concedes, these very pretty close at hand, gorse bright green, and every species of flower. Gentlemen's houses, ugly square boxes. Plantations thriving. At New Church in evening, very hot, very fine and smelling of paint. Well, New Church, I can only presume it's St George's. It's the newest one in Douglas. It had actually been consecrated in 1781, so not that new, certainly, and had an organ installed in the 1780s. Bishop William Ward appointed an unknown clergyman, he was a stranger to the island, Benjamin Philpot, to come and take over the parish of St George's in August of 1827. Now, that was initially unpopular, a stranger for a start, appointed by the bishop, but Philpot started a Sunday school and lectures for young men, and he took to visiting the poorer parts of the parish and established a soup kitchen. So the parish very quickly warmed to him, and the congregation soon grew. And that may have led to a refurbishment by the time that Dorothy Wordsworth was there. That was the following year, the year after Benjamin Philpot took over. Then Dorothy notes, not out again, evening gloomy. As a barrant, ye, machinach, tan count a very marish, as to skame enjach nod a hatchim forrad. Na san me. Hi me lug machir gus van Helsing, as dinch me de Jane Aurasem. Henke de veit fi trom chushach. As lug de smullion a chushrish tamult, vraya jim de chorleshe gus Renfield. Ren me shen. Chouds henkshin stiach eg a doris, chielshin a dunje benre chows dai, Coil a ren de manre, maar vei allach was genus a trevis gien nish de vei go fode de henne. Tre heishin stiach on, honnikshin, as yin de zorren, de raui skelje maak a sugar egge sa chan acht. Van a kar chulligan, gin brie leshen jouwer, Coil toiach der cronen stiach sa chamber. Hug je neighbor cor ersen lort mich an kusje gelorte zijn roosjen, ach, gejinnach e cor Gael. Renne frail rish Coil a ren, kart man a bergschen kion finish. Vermeer de fabereggers vei fillisjen stiach ons lior skriwi. Now, Linda Griffiths is joined by her daughters, Lisa ANGHARAD and Gwenno Ellan, as they rock the cradle, lamenting a woman's lot. Siglo'r Creed.
Nid oes dim yn torri'n halon, ond gweld merched ieuanc ddigon, am unau sydd mewn oedran geneth, wedi ymrwym o'i fod yn fameth. Ni feddyliais ond briodi, na chawn ddim ond dawnsio chani, ond beth a ges ar ôl priodi, ond Siglo'r cryd a sio'r babi. Siglo'r cryd am troed wrth bobi, Siglo'r cryd am troed wrth olchi, Siglo'r cryd ym mhob hyswiaeth, Siglo'r cryd sydd rhaid I famaeth. Caniw na fa bod yn llawen, fel y gog ar frig y gangen, a beth bynnag ddaw'n blino, caniw na a gadael iddo.
Traditional Welsh verses as Linda Griffiths and her daughters Lisa ANGHARAD and Gwenno Ellan rocked the cradle and bemoaned their situation. However, that arrangement of the Welsh song was made by Breton singer Brigitte Claare. She in fact founded a Welsh group when she was working in Wales. She speaks Welsh as well as Breton, and she had a Welsh group. I think it was called Sedd Rhyddferch, something like that. Anyway, I'll have to check on that. Fe oren chit vai chwish Guinness as tre haishin stiach on. Square a chwys te genu sus the jaru, signed on freelara nach. Skriwen, Mitchell Meccas Candy gus an charn Godalming, and hidle jara fower, me jarn, tashin de kinjach ach ro wuiach de chordeel rishnan yerian. Gauji masalju benten den yeriau mecharn, mordinch ma shahaga dun aston ye, a fis hies mechan krekkes kjonige eru 3 keer shach Picadilly. Tan a krekkederen bunnedag schekteren manche Archibald Winter Suffield, tamarunish. Tan kjoneder na winje wuzel Jory and Count de Ville. Ren Coulina kjoniach hon heen, ons ikte hergit de kjonige ons noten herrische boord, ma jaren leiden ons jino ima JAGO go angel. Limme shoh in alfisser bein ma kjon. Ta shingen me jaren, scherwenten imli me jaren, Mitchell Meccas Candy. July the 7th, Monday. Departed for Castletown at 10 minutes past 10. Well, that seems very particular, doesn't it? Not 10 or about 10, but 10 minutes past 10. I thought that perhaps meant she'd gone in a coach, but, well, she seems to stop off on the way, so I think she's walking again. And she describes the day as hot but fine breeze. Nothing very interesting except peeps of the sea. Well peopled and cultivated, yet generally naked. As I say, no trees in those days. Oak Hill, a pretty house in a valley, and not an oak near it. And after Oak Hill she then mentions Mr. Garside's place, naked and cultivated. Earth hedges, yet thriving trees and white roses. Now the Garsides, as Dorothy Wordsworth called them, had called in at Henry and Joanna Hutchinson's house on the South Quay on the morning of the 4th of July, so here was a chance apparently to call at their house in passing. However, this may be another misheard name by Dorothy. Pigot's directory for 1823 refers to Garston, James, Esquire, Hampton Cottage. Well, Hampton Cottage would put it in the right area after passing Oak Hill and going south. Well, now, we nearly doubled up, in fact, at the end of Gulda's Gag, and we heard the Proclaimers singing 500 miles. But off to Kilmarnock now in the company of Craig and Charlie Reid.
I'm not going to talk about doubts and confusion on a night when I can see with my shut. I'm not going to talk about doubts and confusion on a night when I can see with my shut. I'm not going to talk about doubts and confusion on a night when I can see with my shut. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna talk about it. I've never been to Ayrshire, Hestdown on Saturday. Systematic harmonic, to see a band in play. The day was bright and sunny, but the game I won the lay. And there was no harmonic on it to make me wanna stay. But I'm not gonna talk about it all night when I can see with my shots. No, I'm not gonna talk about it all night when I can see with my shots. When I started walking the West Shore, my eyes obscured my vision. After 5 miles on my way, I began to learn to listen. When I started walking the West Shore, my eyes obscured my vision. After 5 miles on my way, I began to learn to listen. And I'm not gonna talk about it all night when I can see with my shots. I've been saying all night when I can see with my shots. I walked through the country, I walked through the town. I held my head up and I looked down. I walked through the country, I walked through the town. I held my head up and I didn't look down. And I'm not gonna talk about it all night when I can see with my shots. Morning sky, all night when I can see with my shots. Well, the question doesn't matter, the answer's always I. The best view of all is where the land meets the sky. The question doesn't matter, the answer's always I. The best view of all is where the land meets the sky. That's why I'm not gonna talk about it all night when I can see with my shots. Here I go, yeah, whoa. I've never been to Ayrshire, I spent one Saturday. I went to 60 miles, come on, and just to see a bit of play. The day was bright and sunny, but the game I won away, and there was no come on and fun to make me stay. I'm not gonna talk about it all night when I can see with my shots. I've been saying,
The Proclaimers, Craig and Charlie Reid, they're not going to talk about it, but fortunately they sang about it. Joyful Kilmarnock Blues. Now that entry in Pickett's directory for 1823 mentioned James Garstin at Hampton Cottage in Braddon, which would also fit in with what Dorothy Wordsworth now says. Having lived there 4 years, she says, so that's 1823-ish, yet walks all rough. Descent of a little glen or large cleft very pleasing, with its small tribute to the ocean. One cottage and a corn enclosure. Wild thyme, sedum, etc. Brilliant, and dark green gorse, the bay lovely on this sweet morning. High rocks. Well, I presume she's got a view down to the sea cliffs, which is perhaps what she means by high rocks. Well, Pickett's directory has that name of Garstin. Dorothy Wordsworth has twice now used Garside, but then she writes of Mrs. Garstang. Was that perhaps the name all along, despite Pickett's Garstin and Dorothy's Garside? Was it Garstang? Anyway, the lady, Mrs. Garstang called here, the lady is obviously enjoying the country life in Hampton Cottage because Dorothy writes, Mrs. Garstang luscious with loves and dears, sweet Mona and sweet Fanny and the darling cow that gives 8 pounds of butter. Gilen and Early Seward and Nala Jerafawer. Hug me dunjes a corridor raar, as dinch me there the nood kerelach je sheen erbij veger glaasjen van Schemer Renfield, as hug me Sarah day, de berg ridden kweeg on, de chore morm. Lot jenair trevasjen uljuer jaglen me giet den aisles de Schemer studeres, as benasje haker a schroel de lie, rensjen lord me on de eben, as nuwe feathernis maag so lie. She haker inrigen veer jitlesh, as was een treestel de moer de beg scant joy de liedegge. Roos me jag me de lie, hij me giert gescheme a hurnsach, as ich me stjag aan through de goele waag. Ve kadle de down, as van kriege gierie as tujum lesh tar nennel de ree. Moradiw hwg yn dynia cyrmich fistaw dyraw began lugabeni dyraw ei aneisiach as dyren ei ffreilrish Gael na pager yn ega began yrd. Frai mi jay raw shenoliw. Dyregar ei dyraw shenoliw ren ei clashen. A traditional tune from Brittany, Jolie Nanon, arranged by guitarist Heike Bourgault, who first came to the island for Shanach's Stew, where he met Scottish flute player Callum Stewart, that we heard there as well. They formed a very productive partnership, and that track, Jolie Nanon, was from an album they launched at Shanach's Stew a few years ago. Siw geisdiach rys stasiwn yn asiwn radio fannin, as yn shoh sé Claare na Gael vis verklaasd yn cartnish, mish Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Have you heard tell of our Bobby Bob?
Varridanach o awrasach mychion yn immerkege, de remmi braiach jay de girach rawi vein na chadla. Ren gobble de rawi na chadla, ach ren goirish de raw Sabine rish tamelt. Stride allure man wat barrend we courage ons denia man velad guller gian Due to harker mooi is gyrt lee jegger. As de art as Quincy feathen maag michion Karel. De Godalming smunnion de berge mai, me bis Karel de kinjach urlu. Son trevis a fissain tashin de hira, gebied treer bi de be kaltijn. Saindun ginu shast ulju in oor va courage shachon, eder iri na grenia as een laigrenia. Nach Sean je must goil account gouds te sanuna, as gin kemmer de chee hugger. Te ban Helsinger sulgus een taitash die goldach, as ronsige kus de eer mai insit, shan vedsen. Ren de shan eerlie goil taste je ridden na vel udsen te gair doru, sayach jay. So we've been to Hampton Court, not Hampton Court, Hampton Cottage, where the Garsides, Garstangs or Garstins live. Afterwards, she says, poor cottages. Now and then a large house and plantation. The larch doesn't thrive. High ground, narrow flowery lanes, wild sea view. Low peninsula of Longness, she says, rather than Langness. Large round fort and ruined church. Of course, this is the Derby fort from 1645 and St. Michael's Chapel, which is far older. Bay of Derby, as Dorothy Wordsworth calls it, meaning Derby Haven. And port, she says, cold, mean, comfortless. A large mansion tenanted by a Cumberland farmer. Walk and gateways desolate. Well, it's not clear which large mansion she may mean, evidently somewhere between Derby Haven and the harbour in Castletown, as we shall hear, but this is tenanted by a Cumberland farmer, which suggests an agricultural holding with a large house, and perhaps this was the large Ronaldsway farmhouse, the former home of William Dawn. That Ronaldsway farmhouse, despite its historic associations, was demolished in 1940 to make way for the military airfield. In 1817, Ronaldsway had been bought by General Goldie of the nunnery, so it may have been his tenant that was this Cumberland farmer. Now we join the MOLLAG band again with a song written about the gentle giants, the basking sharks. This is Don't Hurt Me Now.
Heal me, for I have been misunderstood, and set me free. Their lion eyes can't see for blood. Judas kissed me long ago, through the jaws of fear I go, in everlasting search, for as much as I have not known. Sail away, your bonny boats out in the bay, but when you're near me, keep watch for the black and the grey. Judas kissed me long ago, through the jaws of fear I go, in everlasting search, for as much as I have not known. So draw your pen and legislate for those you cannot educate for me. And when you sail your ships of stone, see that you're not left alone, out where the oceans touch the skies and the orange seas the garbage lies. For you, in silent grace and solemn vow, to never laugh, never cry aloud. Don't hurt me now. Sail away, fair winds for your bonny boats, but when you're near me, keep watch where the monarch floats.
The MOLLAG band, and joined by the voice of Sam Brown on that recording of Don't Hurt Me Now. I mentioned that this mansion, this large mansion tenanted by the Cumberland farmer, was somewhere between Derby Haven and the harbour in Castletown. Well, she's mentioned Bay of Derby, and now she goes on to low water at Castletown, drawbridge, river and castle, handsome, strong fortress, soldiers pacing sentinel, officers and music, groups of women in white caps listening, very like a town in French Flanders, etc., etc. Civility, large rooms, no neatness. Now, I don't know whether perhaps Dorothy Wordsworth was staying, perhaps at the George Hotel in Castletown. Perhaps that was what drew the rather barbed reference. Civility, large rooms, no neatness. Anyway, it seems that she stayed in Castletown overnight, though, because the next entry reads, July the 8th, Tuesday. Rose before 6. Pleasant walk to Port Murray Kirk. Along the bay before breakfast. Well, Port Murray Kirk, as Dorothy Wordsworth calls it, is Port St Mary, obviously. Well cultivated, she says. Very populous, but wanting trees. Again, that lack of trees in the island at that juncture. Outlines of hills pleasing. Port Mary, harbour for Manx fleet. Of course, there were the Port St Mary schooners in later days, but this was probably the Manx fishing fleet she's referring to here. In court, rustic. Crowded with furniture upstairs, not over clean. I don't know which inn she might have gone to in Port St Mary at that time. Very pretty green banks near the port. Neat huts under those banks, with flower garden, fishing nets, and sheep. Really beautiful. Tan alw sir a sesen de chorchauer de butchen as de drach spiriden as foddy de beard immer doildun na san me. Na keerten, tammy smunion de welchen olju gin hours asnin Gael, as de gin much duste gesuntage, ons perry and kiaull. Na san me. Tashin jit kujach rish. Te gien verjere de welchen cheayrt red cheayrt, as fuddy de bean overein len a verach, taiacht en jere. Tammy gindis wel cunus Renfield Conchonald shoh ons acht erbij. Tan a themen egge chwish nair na vagint en count, fuddy de be straire hit en uitbrout, de chorlesh de ons acht voljachtach enjach. De rauwach fauwenjach de regettenein machon na haitrud na inchinegge, tre en argen emrish Jew as egol taiach risher terten karchulligen, fuddy de berg lead lech moer regettenein. De gin de veli cunish rish tamelt. Wel, ve gin de denke neem kai shen vain chemeregge. Now, Anna Clifford Tate wrote a song in Cornish and English called Sorrow, and this is it. Anna Clifford Tate and her song in Cornish and English, Sorrow. Henke ten jailach is brisje stiach ons mechemer, as dintje ouder ou Renfield ons achtenjage horrens drach achert, weer glaas ne gillig maag, as tre haie hugge, goereie na laier en edenegge her le, ol je koedik les fool, sein thou gold shalirach. To Port Erin, over the height, 3 miles, a wild walk, and beautiful descent to Port Erin. A fleet of near 40 sails and nets in the circular rocky harbour. White houses at different heights on the bank. Well, we'll hear more next time as Dorothy Wordsworth goes back to fill in a little more detail of her walk from Port St Mary to Port Erin. Ach, nicht een treer jit ma hand de hjuler school as ma soort a fame chol erg leis jorish. Between 7 and 9 here on Manx Radio this Sunday evening, you can enjoy the best of chill-out music in the company of Chris Pearson. Then at 9, Judith Leigh will be here to bring you sundown through into Monday morning. We close Claare and Gael with Irish traditional music from Carrick-on-Shannon, most of which lies in County Leitrim, but a small part of it which is in County Roscommon. Dylan Carlos on fiddle, Ken Sweeney on flute and John McCartan on guitar. Ach, Shananish, as ma saw, until the next time then, this is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Old Bobby Bob.
Wishing you a very good night. Eve I'm a chrieri was orserlie, as me yeri and shared you will you.